want to harm people.
Now, Mountain View is an apartment complex in St. Johnsbury, is that correct?
Yes.
And how many residents are there, do you know, offhand?
Oh boy, I know there's more than, there's close to 100.
Okay.
I don't know the exact number, Nelson. We've been getting like 12 to 15 tenants that come to our meetings regularly.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also, we've reached out to tenants at Pasumsic View, which is on Railroad Street.
Right.
And we've also been working down at Clark's Landing in Groton. These are other places owned by Rural Edge.
Mm-hmm.
And again, across the board, people are saying, yes, we understand. You know, down in Groton, there's a woman who, I just completed a class down there, and we did kind of a combination of smoke-free housing and tobacco cessation. And this woman is 82 years old, and she has smoked most of her life. And she told me, she said, since she moved into this place, she does not smoke in her apartment. She said, I don't want my apartment to stink. She said, and I don't want to stink up anyone else's. She totally understands this. She smokes 4 cigarettes a day, so she's like, I'm 82 and I don't want to quit. She said, but I don't smoke in my apartment, and I totally agree with this idea of protecting my neighbors.
So there's really, the strong push is on education at this point. There's no legislation pending that would prohibit smoking in a public building?
No, there is not.
Not a public building, but multi-unit.
Multi-unit housing, yeah. We provide templates for folks that are looking for model policies, but there's no legislation pending, as far as I know,
Yep.
on this issue. Burlington Housing Authority is gradually moving all of their buildings to smoke-free policy. I know Cathedral Square has been doing a lot of work on this issue. A number of their buildings are smoke-free. Rutland Housing Authority, Rutland Land Trust buildings are smoke-free, and then I just heard the Vermont Housing Authority is going smoke-free in the very near future. So there's been a lot of really great voluntary efforts to do this, and doing the right thing that Rose is talking about in this area of the state is really engaging not only the building managers and the landlords, but getting the tenants involved in it.
And if a building is smoke-free as a result of the initiative of management or the ownership, how is that enforced?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's like this. Everybody said when we said, well, smoking should not happen in bars. Everybody said, well, how are you going to enforce that? Well, it becomes self-enforcing. What we're really doing is changing a social norm, and people just get used to it. There'll be somebody occasionally that will sneak a cigarette. We know that, but most people will comply with the policy, once it's in place. And I think the more buy-in you get, and the more inclusive you are in the process, the better off you are in the end.
It's interesting to me. I used to own a business, rather substantial business, a truck stop in Vermont. And when Vermont passed its law saying there'll be no smoking in any portion of any public building, I welcomed that. I removed all the ashtrays from the tables. And what we found was there was some resistance, but people said, okay, I'll just smoke outside. But what we found was that our business increased because people who weren't coming before, because there was smoking, started to come because there was no smoking. And it made a big difference, and it was a positive impact for us. And I suspect that it would be the same with housing. If I were moving into a unit and there was smoking there, I probably wouldn't do it. But if I knew that it was a smoke-free environment, then I would be encouraged to do that. So yeah, I can see that. What do we consider multi-unit housing to be?
That's when I get calls.
Not a trick question.
Yeah, if I get a call and you're where you live is connected to another unit, I consider that multi-unit.
Okay.
So I just talked to somebody that bought a condo, and I think there's only 6 units in her complex, but she's getting bothered by her neighbor's smoke and was told that the buildings were smoke-free. So, yeah, but for the purposes of our grant, we're really focusing on rural communities, and that includes the Northeast Kingdom. Rutland is part of that. But in terms of multi-unit housing, we'll try to help anybody who's interested
Sure.
in implementing policy.
I mean, I try to walk every day in the around St. Johnsbury area, around my office, and I see a lot of housing that at one time was probably a single-family house, big homes that were here 100 years ago. And now you count, and there might be 5 or 6 electrical meters on the outside of the building, indicating to me that this is obviously multi-unit housing, and there are that many families living there. And it would be entirely up to the owner of the building or the management of the building to change a policy from smoking to non-smoking. Is that correct?
Yes, they can do that on their own, yeah. And, you know, I think in a lot of cases, it's a matter of just letting folks know and putting up signs, please don't smoke. But for some, especially the big complexes where you might have a lot of smokers, it really needs to be a process that everybody needs to be engaged in order for it to be effective.
And you know, with Rural Edge, they, as they turn over apartments, you know, these places are redone every few years. And as they're doing that, they are making the units smoke-free. So that part's pretty easy because it's already been scheduled, it's already in their budget. They've already planned for that. And as they're doing that, those units become smoke-free. The challenge is if they have a building or a complex that is not scheduled to be, you know, updated or redone. That's where, you know, they have to really figure out the cost to be able to do that. And that's what they're looking at right now.
Because we mentioned this earlier, that there's a huge cost to not
That's
making
right.
this conversion.
Yeah.
Right.
And they see that.
Right.
Yes.
When somebody moves out, when a smoker moves out of a unit, there's a tremendous cost in cleaning that unit so that it doesn't contain smell and stain and
Yeah,
other things from smoke.
you know, the latest number that I saw was close to 4,000, and that's just an estimate. It could be more than that
To clean the
to
unit?
clean up
A
a
one-bedroom apartment.
one-bedroom apartment. Whereas if it's a non-smokers, it's less than 600, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, less than
Yeah.
600.
Yeah.
So that's a
It's significant.
yeah.
So it's really to a landlord's advantage to have smoke-free housing that he owns, or she. What about animals that are in multi-unit housing developments? What's the effect on an animal?
Yeah, that's it's interesting because that sometimes if a smoker doesn't really that the human side doesn't really interest them that much, when you start talking about their pets, they're surprised that because you can, you know, secondhand smoke causes cancer in dogs and cats. Then there's the issue of if my dog will eat anything that's. He had his head in the. We pulled out our wood stove bin the other day to clean out the ashes, and he had his head in there. So he'll eat anything. That, you know, if a dog eats the remainders, the butts, that's very, very dangerous. Can cause dramatic respiratory stress in an animal. So it's dangerous to animals. You know, it's just like humans. Dangerous to humans.
That's
dangerous
another
to animals.
motivator for people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Well, I know Rose has been active in this for a long, long time, and I've worked with her on some of these issues. We did a panel discussion here on KETV about a year ago.
About a year ago.
With some delightful people, a mother and daughter, who took on the initiative of trying to have smoke-free areas in
state parks and
state parks
forests.
and beaches and hiking trails.
Yeah.
What happened with that?
It happened. The parks folks got together and said it's time to do this. And so there wasn't a law passed. It wasn't done through legislation.
Right.
The park at the state level decided
There was
they
a
were
bill
going to.
proposed, though.
There was a bill proposed, and that didn't get passed. But what do you?
It was on the wall. It was.
Yeah, they made a rule.
Yeah.
And so it essentially did the same thing.
Right.
So now when you go to a state park or forest area, you're going to see no smoking.
Yeah, there are still some loopholes in some of the smoke-free laws, and there's a bill introduced this year to clean those up, and that would include, for example, hotels can still permit smoking within a hotel room, not the lobby, but the actual sleeping quarters. And, you know, and workers are exposed to secondhand smoke from those. And then I think in this bill is also included a perimeter, I forget if it's 25 feet, but, you know, of state-owned and leased
I think it's
property.
50 feet.
50 feet.
50 feet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm not sure if that's going to go anywhere this year, but that would make us, you know, pretty much 100% smoke-free state.
No, I remember people being able to smoke on airplanes, and that air just kept getting circulated throughout the whole plane. And I guess at one time we didn't realize how dangerous that was.
Right. Lieutenant Governor, the former Lieutenant Governor Doobie, who is a pilot for American Airlines,
Yeah.
I think, used to love to talk about the tar that they used to get, that would accumulate in the jet engines from the smoke on the planes.
Wow.
Yeah, we've come along. We have come a very long way. Yeah.
But this is still a long way to go.
Still,
And
yeah. Well, we're up against a huge, marketing machine that's always, 10 steps ahead of us with the tobacco industry coming up with new ways to addict children, and they have unlimited marketing dollars. So this problem's, I think Rose and I both agree we'd like to work ourselves out of a job.
Yes.
Oh, sure.
It's not going to go away.
Sure.
We just have to keep the pressure on.
And most of us who are in the nonprofit area feel the same way. I mean, I teach financial literacy, and I wish I didn't have to. And, we're part of the Fit and Healthy Coalition at NVRH and do a lot of work with everything from obesity to exercise to non-smoking, all these activities. We wish we didn't have to do that. Basic needs, I wish we didn't have to worry about fuel assistance for people, but that's all part of what we do. So would I like to work myself out of a job? Sure, I'd love to. You know.
Right.
All right, well,
Can I just add
Sure.
one more thing? The idea behind these policies is not to force smokers to quit, but most smokers say they want to quit smoking and they try multiple times. The other wonderful thing about being in Vermont is that there's a great support system out there through the Vermont Quit Network, and the work that the hospital's doing under Rose's leadership is amazing support for smokers who are ready to quit. They can also, if they don't have time to participate in a group, they can join via the phone counseling at 1-800-QUIT-NOW. And then there's also web support too. And in addition to that, the state provides a certain amount of free nicotine replacement therapy, which doubles a smoker's chance of quitting smoking.
Yeah. And of course, as more people quit smoking and the numbers change of smokers and non-smokers, it makes this job easier because there just aren't as many smokers as there used to be.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And the social stigma is so much stronger now than it ever used to be.
And I'm really hopeful, Nelson, because of all the work that's going on in schools. And like even at Mountain View, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, we had a poster making event and invited the kids who live at Mountain View and the other buildings also to come and make posters. And we had a full house. We had a full house. We had tons of kids there making posters, and they had to share their poster. And the goal was, when we're done with this, we're going to take some ideas or some of the pieces from each of the posters to make the sign that will then be posted throughout the development.
Nice.
But to hear the kids talking about why you shouldn't smoke and to be explaining why secondhand smoke is dangerous, that gives me a lot of hope.
Good.
Kids are smart, and we are seeing the numbers go down. We just got to keep doing this,
Sure.
and kids are getting smart.
They always have been.
But they're getting really smart. They're choosing not to smoke, and let's hope it stays that way.
Oh,
Right.
That's great. Well, let's wrap this up. Rebecca, if people want to see more about this or go online, would you repeat that?
Yeah,
website?
sure. The website is www.smokefreehousingvt, that's all one word, .org, and you can click Contact Us, and those emails will come directly to me, and I'll respond. You can also call 1-800-LUNG-USA, and you can connect with the Vermont office.
Good. And Rose, how do people get a hold of you?
They can call me at 748-7532.
And that's at NVRH, Northeastern Vermont Regional Hospital.
Yes.
Okay. And for information on any of our activities at Green Mountain United Way, you can go to our website, which is www.gmunitedway.org. My email address is nbaker@gmunitedway.org. And my phone number at my local office here in St. Johnsbury is 802-745-0101. Rebecca and Rose, I want to thank you very much. I think this has been a good program for people to think about and be encouraged by your activities. So again, thank you, and I think that'll do it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.